All right, we got a really nice little call here. Beautiful, beautiful condition. It appears to be, oh man, it's like ebony, a really dark rosewood. Yeah, it's ebony, and it's a 1959. I'm sorry, 69 Iverson. So as you remember, I've gone through this before. You won't be able to see it. You can watch another one on how to decode these. But there is a 9 on here and an Iverson, no EV. Mr. Iverson shaved off the EV on that stamp in 1964. So when you don't see the EV, it's after 1964. The 9 refers to the last year. I'm sorry, that's an 8. I have to look again. The 8 refers to the last year of the year. So I know this is not a 1978 because my dad had the business by then and he wasn't making this shape. This is definitely an EV Iverson shape. So that would put it in 1968 call. And not 1958, as I mentioned earlier, because the EV is not on there. So this is a 1968 Iverson, which is a great vintage call. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Gentleman who has this taking great shape of it. One quick thing before I tune this up, it was stuck together. So as I've mentioned before, it's good to, if you've got it on your shelf, this needs to be refit, which I need to do too, come to think of it. Might have to stop and restart this. But anyway, you should probably check the tightness of your calls, even if they're just sitting on as decoration. Open them and make sure they sit in there very loosely, because as you probably know, weather, cold and heat will change the dynamic of wood. So cold will shrink the wood, heat will expand the wood, cause expansion. So if you have it in there reasonably tight and it gets hot, it'll cinch up and get stuck. So this gentleman sent it to me, stuck together, and I thought it was gonna be difficult. I've had to put calls in the freezer for an hour or two to kind of shrink them down a little to get them loose. But this one I didn't. I'll show you why. The trick is this. If you ever get them really stuck together, the old style calls with this flat piece here on the tone board, you can actually put like a cedar dowel or a soft dowel up against that in the barrel and bang down. So what I did, so I took this dowel, this was stuck together. I carefully looked inside. Okay, so the stopper is sitting down on this lower half of the cup. I set this down in there so it's hitting that. Now the cool part is about cedar is it's way softer than ebony, so it's not gonna hurt that call. It's not gonna chip it. This will chip first. So what I did is I turned it over. I went to my saw, and it's hard to see maybe, I should probably use a shorter one. And then I held this like this, and I essentially just went bang real hard and it popped out. So sometimes you gotta do it, pretty hard, but the thing is, you just got to be careful so if you don't have a hold of the stopper, you could send the stopper flying and damage it that way. So you definitely want to hold on to the stopper when you do that. Bam, coming apart. It's difficult to do this with some calls, say the championship calls, because it's got that bent platform, or if it's a goose call, it's difficult too, because the reed actually sits farther out than the stopper itself. So, but on these flat tone board duck calls, it's definitely a way to get them out. So that's a little trick there. I'm going to go fit this and come back in like 2 seconds. All right, I'm back. Before, when I was doing the demonstration, it wasn't quite sitting in, and it's actually sitting up here, so air was escaping. So I kind of refit that down. So no air is escaping here now, which is pretty important. I mean, one way you can do that is hold your hand on this end and blow on it. Now, I will tell you, on these older calls that have these little lanyard holes in them, which is a weird construction design that my dad eliminated in the 70s sometime. You have to kind of put your mouth over the whole thing to make sure it's not leaking air, which is a little awkward, but it'll work. So I'm gonna tune this up. So a couple things is you'll notice when you see some of these older calls, some of the reeds, some of the cork are a little thinner, so I'm gonna have to shave down the cork I use, either way here. And then a lot of times these calls came standard with wider reed. This is the same material, bent the same. It's got a 185 on it, which is not a numbering system that I'm super familiar with because it was an Iverson, but I can tell by the shape that it settles into what we now know as the 984W. Because for the most part, other than it's a little shorter, and I'll probably need to trim that, it's got about a pretty similar width. Now, one of the things is you'll notice that tip is there is pretty flat. I don't know if this gentleman trimmed that down to make it easier to blow or whatever, but my dad ended up designing these reeds with a little smaller point on him to get them a little easier to blow. But as you tune and trim, you can trim off the front and make that flatter. But if you like the way that it's blowing on the low end, you can trim from the back and just kind of make it easier to blow as you go forward. So the shorter the reed, the little easier to blow it is. So we're going to pop that in there and kind of just dial it in. So, I mean, obviously when you put it in here, it's probably going to be way too big. I'm just going to see how this cork fits. It's not bad. I'm just gonna try it for the heck of it with his. No, it's not tight enough. So I'm gonna need to. But you'll see here in a sec that one of my corks will not fit in there. I can almost guarantee you. Yeah, it's way too big. So you gotta shave that baby down. Now you can do it with a thing. I've taken to doing a sander over here. You can't see this. Kind of risk taking your fingers off, but I have a little belt sander right there. You can kind of shave these off. See if that worked. Okay, if I get that perfectly, I'm gonna pat myself on the back. So let's see here, make sure that reed's sitting flat when I pop it back there. I sanded it too far. That's one downfall of the sanders. You can take it too far pretty quick. It doesn't sound terrible, honestly. I am gonna do another cork though, so be right back. Now you might think that that last reed that I went too far with is not usable. I will save that, and I guarantee you I will use that at some point in someone's call who sends it call back, because it'll just end up fitting. So let's try this one. Try not to go as far on this one. Ooh, might need to go a little farther. We'll see how this fits in here. Ooh, it's pretty tight. I might just go a little bit. Let's see how that sounds. Guessing I'm gonna have to take that down a little farther. Okay, I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna take that down just a little bit. I'm also gonna bring that reed back just a little. Darn it. If you can't get it out when you put it in after you take the reed out, you know it's a little too big. So there we go. So I'm gonna bring that back a little bit. Well, and then that's the other danger, is you can shoot it off into the running unintentional comedy right now. So I'm gonna go a little farther with that. I just have a belt sander sitting, that feels pretty good. I just have a belt sander sitting on the side here that I can kind of turn on. Kind of use it for a number of things. All right, let's see if that's gonna work. Still think oh yeah, that's actually perfect, I think. Tightness wise. I mean, personally, I like kind of where that is. Okay, I'm gonna leave that. I think that sounds great, honestly. I don't wanna mess with it. I got a right good fit, got a good read. He's gonna put it on the shelf. He's gonna be happy with it. I'm gonna send him all this stuff back just so he has all the original parts of that call. And that's it. Have a great one.